Alright, howdy howdy, N1SC here, formerly KG7HSN. You might have seen some of my older YouTube videos. So I thought this Sunday afternoon would be an wonderful opportunity to introduce you to Whisper. What in the world is Whisper? Whisper is another protocol developed by the great minds Joe Taylor and friends, who came up with JT65, JT9, and it's a program through WSJT-X. It's also available through other programs that are some spin-offs. The one I'm using is called JTDX, but it's basically more or less the exact same concept, principles, and tools as WSJT-X. So just to give you an idea, what I was experiencing is very weak band conditions. So here you have the band conditions. It says that 30 is open, but I was sitting there looking around going, oh my goodness, I'm not hearing anybody, I'm not getting out anywhere. What's going on? I don't want to go through each one of the bands, 80, 40, then 30, then 20, then 17, 15, and even 10, to try to figure out where everybody's at and actually try to find the propagation, find out what's going to be best for me, what the propagation is doing. Where can I actually be heard? Am I only being heard in California? Am I being heard back on the East Coast? If it is on the East Coast, then awesome, I want to work East Coast because I'm all the way out here in Utah. So this program over here, I've got it set up and running. And what he's doing now is I've got this set up on a schedule that basically, for 2 minutes straight, it will send a signal that is a very, very simple signal. We're not doing, it's a very basic a basic communication. There's other people out there that are listening, and I'm also listening in return, so then that way we can kind of basically ping. So it's kind of like the CW beacons, if you will. In fact, that's exactly what it reminds me of, the CW beacons. And this allows us to kind of be able to see where the propagation, what the propagation is doing, where we can go, if it's really strong, if it's really weak. And it uses very little power. So I'm running on 10 watts, which is actually quite a bit for Whisper. But I also have a very compromised antenna. I'm up against a mountain, so it's really difficult for me to get out anyway. So what it is doing is for 2 minutes, it will randomly follow this band plan that I've turned on, or this schedule. And on 20 meters, whether it's during the sunrise gray line, daytime, sunset, nighttime, it will tune up on 80 meters on a specified frequency that they've already set up and kind of coordinated. So all the other users will be listening on the other frequencies as well, and it will send or receive, one of the two. And same thing with 60 meters. I can't work 60 meters. I can listen to it, so I've got it set up to say only at nighttime or during the sunrise. I want you to listen for 60 meters, and I want you to receive only. 40, 30, I've got all the time, pretty much all the time. 20, 17, 15, I'm telling it to tune up, but I'm telling it to only pretty much work daytime because nighttime 20 meters dies. Same with 17, 15. And then 12 and 10, I'm saying only do it during the very, peak hours. And you can specify how long of a gray time you want. So kind of cool. I've got this set to pretty high right now, so 60% of all of my transmitting time is actually going to be done, or 60% of the time, 60% of the cycles are going to be transmitting. You can lower it down to 10. You can increase it to 100 if you want to try to burn out your radio, maybe. I don't know. You can also change the transmit frequency. By default, it's set to 1500 hertz. So basically, it'd be right here on this. This is your waterfall. So this is kind of your point of origin at 0 hertz all the way up to 3000, right? So a typical voice would range from about here to about here, right? If you were working phone single sideband. But this is very, very, very narrow. It's probably something like 10 hertz wide, probably less than that. It's very minimal. It embeds all of your information, especially if you're transmitting over 5 watts. I believe it embeds the power as well. And then that way, other stations, if a station comes booming in or I go booming in, they can see, and their software will already detect and say, oh, well, he was running 100 watts or he was running 50 watts. That's why the signal's so strong. And then they can actually calculate. So you set what you're going to be actually transmitting here. Well, you tell it what you're transmitting. You're actually setting it on your radio. It also does allow for you to set up rig control, and I'm also using a signal link, so I've got the output and the input set as well. I'm using my Yaesu FT857, so it does. I am able to use cat control with this, so it jumps between the bands very quickly, very easily. So now that you've got that kind of set up, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm telling it to actually upload the spots to WSPRnet. So WSPRnet is basically now the tool that would allow me, so see it just changed right there. So now I'm actually transmitting on 12 meters at 10 watts. So hopefully someone out there can actually hear me on 12 meters. That'd be kind of cool. So what it does is it allows me to be able to see what other people are seeing or hearing, and this is WSPRnet. So go in, create an account. It will request that you've got to be approved. I don't know what the approval process is. This is just on WSPRnet.org. This is where all the spots are going, and this is kind of I have been having a little bit of issues with this site today. I think it might be connectivity issues. This is showing 20 meters for me specifically. So N1SE, my call in the last 24 hours, and I've told it to turn on the day and night overlay. So interesting, right? You've got some gray line propagation here down by Melbourne, and this guy heard me on 20 meters. So I can come over here and say, I want to see all. I just want to see everything. I want to see everywhere that I've been. It was really, really rough conditions. I was having a very difficult time hearing anything. So that's why I turned this on. I wanted to see, okay, well, what's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? So I turned this on, and you can see I'm getting all over the country. Well, if we go to 80 meters, there's nothing. It doesn't even show. It doesn't even show the map. 60 meters. Let's see if I received anything, because if you remember, I set it to receive only. Nothing. 40 meters. This is the one that I was really struggling with. 40 meters tends to be really, really hot and on the go, especially with JT65. I wasn't even seeing any JT65 signals, so or JT9 signals, either one of them. And it looks like pretty much only West Coast, Arizona, Washington, basically the usuals, and a gentleman all the way out in Illinois. So I can say, okay, well, 40 meters isn't really, no offense, California, isn't really where I'm trying to get to, because I'm trying to work all states on some of the other bands like 30 and 80, and I'm really, really close. I've already got 20 and 40. So let's hurry and check out 20. And okay, looks like 20 is actually getting out a little bit better. So we've got a station all the way down here in Costa Rica, Florida, and it's kind of interesting because you can see like these lines, right? How it kind of creates this natural line, and you can kind of start to tell where it's bouncing and where it's going to, right? And so like here's maybe the first, and then here's the second layer that's maybe being built up. So this guy out here in Rhode Island, of course they're never on JT65 when you're looking for them. Or they are, as you just can't hear them, or they can't hear you, right? So we've got this gentleman all the way out here. So it looks like 20 meters is doing all right. If I were to change this down and say I want to just see in the last 10 minutes, there's nothing. Let's try last hour, which most of this was all in the last hour. So it looks like 20 meters is actually kind of starting to open up a little bit. Now let's go to 30 meters, because that's the one that the band propagation was saying is open the most, and you can see I'm pretty much getting everywhere across the entire country. No DX, but you can see I'm getting everywhere. And again, this is on a compromised antenna. It's a dipole, 40 meter cut dipole. I'm using all of these bands through the 40 meter dipole. It's about 12 to 18 feet off the ground, and I'm using an antenna tuner. So I'm in a deed restricted community, so I'm not entirely certain I'm supposed to, but I'm not going to say anything. But either way, it's a very, very low profile, discreet, so that way it's not an eyesore, and it's sloping down the backside of the hill. So It is kind of tucked out of the way. So with that being said, I'm also at the base of a mountain, an 11-foot thousand mountain. So, and I'm in about 5,000 feet elevation. So I've got 6,000 feet that I'm also working against. That's on the right side of me, the east side of me. So all things considering, with my antenna for 10 watts, pretty dang good. So let's go ahead and jump down. Let's see what 17 meters is doing. So 17 meters is starting to become a little bit more active. I was looking at it earlier, and it was only one station, maybe 10 minutes ago. So it looks like 17 might be opening up a little bit as well. 15, let's see if 15 is doing anything. Okay, that wasn't showing anything earlier, so maybe there is some hope for some stuff. 10 meters or 12 meters, nothing. And if you remember when we first started, it was actually transmitting at 12 meters and nothing at 10 meters. So looks like 30 meters is still probably going to be one of my best bets, or 20 meters, because 20 meters I believe was the one that had the DX down into Australia, yeah, and Costa Rica. So there you go. So now we can go back to the band propagation map, right, and see what these guys are saying. And again, it shows 30 right there at the top. 40 was kind of meh for here for me. 20 was showing and indicating that it was doing a little bit better. So hopefully that'll help. It gives you actual information that's relative to your station, what other people are hearing, as well as what you are receiving. So, but that's kind of a quick intro to Whisper. You know, you're kind of, the first time I saw this, I thought, oh my gosh, this is kind of pointless. Why would I even want to do this? I'm not getting any contacts out of it. I'm not getting any sort of an exchange. I can't upload this to Logbook of the World. But it helps you to be able to know, after running 15, 20, 30 minutes or whatnot, to be able to kind of know where you should be running and to where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck and kind of where the propagation is going. So it's kind of fun, kind of cool. Sometimes when I'm working, and so here you go, you've got, this is kind of a little interesting thing. What you'll see here, I better mention this. This is the waterfall diagram. You'll see a little bar right here. And this is kind of more or less an indication in the WSJT-X software or the JTDX software that says this is kind of a reserved space for Whisper protocols. So all of these little squiggly lines that you're seeing right here, that's how narrow these are. I mean, they're very, very narrow, probably less than 10 hertz wide. And those are where you're going to see the Whisper station. So when you're working JT65 and you're on a band that you see this line up here, that's what that means. And then that's what those single, they almost look like a solid carrier, but they're not. That's a Whisper. So sometimes you can notch that out using a CW notch filter, or you'll use the high cut or the low cut to knock it down and just cover that up. And it's in different places on different bands. So that's also kind of another little useful tool that I like to do. So hopefully that was useful. Kind of just kind of showing you here. It gives you the time, how long I've been running. I started at 1848, so about 2 hours is what this has been running now, and I've just kind of been sitting back watching it. It tells you which bands, transmitting at 30, transmitting at 40, etc. So there you go. And oh, and then here's the dB. It is also very, very time sensitive. My apologies. I know I told you like 3 times that that's pretty much it, but that's not pretty much it. I'm running Dimension 4, just like JT65 and JT9. Whisper is also very, very time sensitive, and it requires you to be in sync. That's part of the secret sauce of the decoder, and it is required in order to be able to decode. Anything more than about 30 seconds off basically won't or not 30 seconds, 3 seconds off. Anything more than 3 seconds off is not going to decode. I haven't seen anything more than that. In fact, you start to have issues even around 2.5 seconds. So I run this guy to make sure that the time delta is not very far off. This guy right here was 1.8 seconds ahead of me. This guy was minus 2.2 seconds behind me. But more or less, it kind of keeps you within that 1 second range. So it works out really, really well. Right here is your strength. So I was receiving some pretty dang weak signals, minus 28 dB. Now I will say that WSPR is probably one of the most robust out of all of them. I think it blows away CW, I think it blows away JT65 and JT9. It doesn't take a lot of power even, and it's with it being 2 minutes, a 2-minute cycle as well. I think that's the other thing that gives it a lot of its power. So blows away PSK31, RTTY. It's got all of, I would call it forward error correction built into it, because I don't know what else to call it. But it's very, 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 very robust. So, and then it shows that this is kind of fun too. It shows if there was any sort of a drift right here, the frequency, the exact frequency that you were at, their call sign, their grid square, and it also shows the distance. So it automatically calculates, looks it up, figures out how far you guys were based off of the grid squares and whatnot, and will say, okay, you were about 2,000 miles apart. So that's kind of cool. Hope that helps. Welcome to WSPR. And the only downside is it ties up a radio. So hope you enjoyed.